Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content.
BASTA. Is there a way out of global polarization? A short word. Dense, definitive. It's not a diplomatic whisper. It's a cry. A cry that echoes from the streets, the networks, the dinner tables split by ideology, the shouting halls of politics, and the tired eyes of those who can no longer bear choosing between extremes. Between judgment without love and compassion without accountability. We live in times of invisible trenches, deep and dividing, fractured families, broken friendships, fragmented nations. And the most dangerous part, we are losing the center, the place of dialogue, the space of encounter. But is it really inevitable? Does the world have to be divided into us and them? Isn't there still a middle path? A place where justice and mercy are not enemies but companions, where strength and tenderness coexist. This book was born from that discomfort, from a longing for meaning amid the noise. It is not a manual of answers, it's a pilgrimage of questions. We will revisit forgotten wisdoms, from philosophy, spirituality, Kabbalah, Eastern paths, and human history, to remember how we have overcome similar crises, and how we can do so again. But this book is also a calling, to the young who still believe in the beauty of the future, to silent leaders who already practice reconciliation in their homes, schools, and communities, to the elders who, even weary, still carry the memory of balance. To you who open these pages with a restless heart, I offer only one invitation. Don't choose a side. Choose a true center, one that listens, embraces, and transforms. Because the world doesn't need more extremes. It needs bridges. And maybe, just maybe, we are the ones who must become the builders of those bridges. André Bianchi, Monte-Raso, Florianopolis, Brazil. 2025. Chapter 1. A World in Trenches. We wake up every day bombarded by opinions. News, posts, hashtags, messages, each side shouting louder than the other, each claiming the truth, each ready to cancel, mock, or silence the opposite. What we are experiencing is not just a political dispute, it's a spiritual collapse. The center, that sacred space of discernment and genuine dialogue, is disappearing. In place of complexity, slogans. In place of doubt, certainties shouted in all caps. In place of empathy, algorithms that confirm our rage. We are not only polarized, we are exhausted. And the danger lies not in the difference of opinions, but in the hatred of the other, families torn apart by ideologies, friendships ruined by elections, religions corrupted by partisan uses, science attacked or idolized depending on who's speaking, and truth reduced to a matter of tribe. But how did we get here? Some blame politics, others technology. Some say it's the media, others education. Some point to the past, others to the lack of future. But the truth is more subtle. We have lost the art of holding tension without breaking. We have forgotten how to stay in uncomfortable spaces without needing to attack or escape. We have unlearned how to listen, to pause, to doubt with elegance, to affirm with humility. Instead, we became addicted to immediacy, to applause, to the side that gives us identity, even if it takes away our peace. We turned disagreement into enmity, and from that, we created a culture of constant war, a war that doesn't need weapons. Just posts, memes, insults, and plenty of followers. This is not sustainable. The world is not calling for more warriors of opinion. It is calling for bridge builders. People who can walk through trenches and light torches in the dark. People who know that truth does not belong to one side, and that complexity is not cowardice. Maybe that's what this book is about. About recovering the sacred center, not as a place of neutrality, but as a place of maturity. And you who read this are invited to return there, even if it hurts. Even if it costs you likes, even if it means walking without applause. Because in the trenches no one wins, but from the center, a new world can begin. Chapter 2. Where did we lose the center? It wasn't sudden. The collapse of the center happened slowly. A crack here, a silence there, a joke that ceased to be funny, a look of contempt, a forced smile at dinner, until the bridge gave way. We didn't notice at first, because the division gave us something addictive, belonging. To a group, to a tribe, to a flag, to a narrative that finally made sense of our anger. And at first it felt good. Finally, someone to blame. Finally, a team to cheer for. Finally, a war that gave meaning to our inner discomfort. But little by little the cost appeared. We began to hide, to filter ourselves, to walk on eggshells at work, at family lunches, in group chats. We became careful, not out of respect, but out of fear. Fear of saying the wrong word. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being thrown into the other side, and something sacred was lost there. Trust. The trust that we can think differently and still walk together. That we can disagree without ceasing to love each other. That human beings are more than the opinions they hold. We lost that. Because we forgot the center. And the center is not an average. It's not a washed-out neutrality. The center is a spiritual force. The center is where paradoxes meet. It is where opposites are not enemies, but complements. It is the place where justice and compassion shake hands. Where clarity doesn't cancel empathy. Where one can be firm and tender at the same time. We lost that. And the price has been high. Silence where there should be conversation. Shouting where there should be listening. Disconnection in the age of hyperconnection. We became sick, emotionally, socially, and spiritually. Because without the center, we drift. And now we need to ask, can we return? Is it possible to rebuild the center, not just in society, but within ourselves? This book believes so. Because history shows us that humanity has always recovered when it dared to meet again. When it recognized the pain of both sides. When it understood that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to navigate it with dignity. Let's remember how to do that. Chapter 3. Ancestral Wisdom and the Middle Way. Before the algorithms, before the ideologies, before the parties, there were paths. Paths of balance, of contemplation, of wisdom born not from shouting, but from silence. Ancient peoples did not have social networks, but they had networks of meaning. They didn't speak of polarization, but they knew the danger of extremes. And above all, they cultivated the middle path. Buddhism and the middle way. The Buddha was not born enlightened. He was born a prince, lived in luxury, disconnected from pain. Then he plunged into the opposite, deprivation, fasting, renunciation. And in the midst of both extremes, his body collapsed. That's when he understood. Neither luxury nor deprivation leads to awakening. Only the middle way, the path that avoids excess and deficiency. This became the heart of Buddhism, a life of attention, of compassion, of moderation and presence. Taoism, the way that balances the opposites. Taoism, the Chinese philosophy of Lao Tzu, speaks of the Tao, the path that flows through all things. It is not a path to be forced, but one to be followed with intuition. Taoism teaches that reality is made of opposites, yin and yang, day and night, strength and gentleness, action and non-action. Wisdom lies not in choosing one or the other, but in honoring both, dancing with them, and knowing the right time for each. The Tao doesn't ask for speed, it asks for harmony. And perhaps that's what we've lost, the rhythm of balance. Aristotle and the golden mean. Even Western philosophy, often seen as rational and linear, also recognized the value of balance. Aristotle, in his Ethics, taught the doctrine of the mean. He said that virtue is not at the extremes. Courage lies between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity lies between stinginess and waste. And justice lies between permissiveness and severity. To live well, therefore, is to walk the middle. Not as indifference, but as mastery. Not as indecision, but as inner strength. Indigenous peoples and the circle. In many indigenous traditions, the path is not a straight line. It's a circle. The circle that includes everyone. The circle of listening. The council where the elder and the child both speak. Where no one has the final word, because wisdom emerges from the group. The circle is the opposite of polarization. It is union in diversity. It is dialogue instead of monologue. It is the body of the tribe remembering that no one walks alone. These ancient paths are not outdated. They are exactly what we need to remember now, because they carry what we've forgotten, that no side holds the whole truth, that to heal we must embrace it, and that the most powerful transformation does not shout, it listens. The future may be digital, fast, and complex, but the wisdom that will save us is old, very old, and it still beats within each of us. Chapter 4. Kabbalah and the Balance of Forces. In the Jewish mystical tradition known as Kabbalah, the world is not a battlefield of good versus evil, but a dance of divine forces that must be brought into balance. According to Kabbalah, reality is sustained by three fundamental pillars. 1. Chesed, loving kindness, compassion, expansion. 2. Gevura, justice, rigor, discernment, limits. 3. Tiferet, harmony, beauty, the middle point that integrates both. This model reveals something profound. Even divine attributes can become dangerous if isolated. Too much chesed, compassion without boundaries, turns into permissiveness, loss of structure. Too much gevura, judgment without love, becomes cruelty, punishment without mercy. Only tiferet, the middle, the union, generates true beauty. And that's what the Tree of Life, central to Kabbalah, teaches, that the divine flows when opposites meet in balance. a world out of balance. Kabbalah doesn't ignore the existence of evil, but it sees evil not as an enemy, but as an imbalance. The kelapot, shells that imprison divine light, are born when a force, however sacred, is misused or taken to the extreme. A desire for justice that turns into violence. A longing for order that becomes authoritarianism. A desire for freedom that becomes chaos. The repair, tikkun, happens when we learn to channel energy in the right measure, at the right time, with the right intention. In other words, healing is balance. Tiferet, the center that heals Tiferet, is not passivity. It is integration. It does not eliminate tension. It honors it and transforms it into music. It is the place where the left and right, masculine and feminine, logic and emotion meet and recognize each other. In Hebrew, Tiferet also means beauty, because true beauty is not in perfection. It's in harmony, in the ability to hold contradictions without collapsing, in the elegance of balance. And perhaps that is the spiritual invitation of this time. Not to win the war of opinions, but to become a living space of reconciliation between the forces of the world. To become Tiferet in action. To embody the sacred center that unites justice and mercy, clarity and kindness, firmness and tenderness. Because the divine is not on one side. The divine is in the center. And it is from there that the world will be rebuilt. Chapter 5. We have overcome before. This is not the first time humanity has lost its balance. It is not the first time the world has been divided into enemies. And it is not the first time we have believed that peace was no longer possible. History is full of moments when the extremes shouted louder, and yet something deeper whispered more powerfully. Let's remember. Post-war Europe and the dream of union. After 2 world wars that devastated Europe, the continent was wounded, divided, in ruins. Hatred between nations ran deep. Revenge was in the air. But something surprising happened. A few visionary leaders, from opposite sides with opposing worldviews, sat down to dream of something unthinkable at the time. Unity. They created the foundations of what would later become the European Union. A project not of uniformity but of peaceful coexistence. A commitment to dialogue over war, to the economy over arms, to the future over the wounds of the past. It wasn't perfect, but it showed that even after the bloodiest extremes, the center could be rebuilt. South Africa and the courage to forgive. In South Africa, apartheid was more than political polarization. It was institutionalized racism, oppression, and pain. Black and white lived in separate worlds. Injustice was the law. When apartheid ended, many feared a wave of revenge. It would have been understandable, but a different force emerged. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, led by Desmond Tutu, a space where pain was not denied, but transformed. Where the past was not erased, but told. Where justice met compassion. It wasn't erasure. It was healing. And it showed the world that forgiveness is not weakness. It's the most courageous strength of all. Germany and the responsibility of memory. After the horror of Nazism and the Holocaust, Germany could have chosen denial or amnesia. Instead, it chose memory. It rebuilt itself materially, but also ethically. It educated generations to recognize mistakes. It made remembrance a national commitment. And in doing so, it taught that the center is not forgetting the past, but confronting it with courage and building something better from it. These are not distant stories. They are living examples that remind us of what's possible when we choose the difficult, sacred path of balance. We have overcome before. We can overcome again, not through slogans, but through soul, not through perfect leaders, but through collective courage, not through magical solutions, but through daily choices to listen, to respect, to stay in the center, even when it hurts. History does not repeat itself, but it does echo. And in these echoes, we find hope. Chapter 6. The new leadership the world needs. We've had enough of loud voices with empty hearts, of leaders who inflame crowds but can't hold silence, of figures who command attention but not trust. The world no longer needs idols. It needs integrity. It no longer asks for saviors. It asks for presence. We used to associate leadership with strength, charisma, grand speeches, and winning debates. Today, a new type of leadership is emerging, not always visible on stages, but powerfully active in daily life. This leadership is not based on ego, but on service. Not on certainty, but on humble listening. Not on imposing, but on connecting. The era of inner leaders. The great shift of this century is that everyone is called to lead. Not with titles, not with followers, but with coherence. Coherence between speech and action, between values and choices, between what is preached and what is lived. A parent who educates without shouting, listening to their child with respect, is a leader. A teacher who includes and inspires, even without the best resources, is a leader. A young person who creates a dialogue circle in their school or community is a leader. A business person who chooses ethics over easy profit is a leader. A spiritual guide who listens more than they preach is a leader. Leadership today is not about control. It is about influence through presence. It is about inspiring without manipulating, guiding without enslaving, choosing peace even when war is profitable. The qualities of the new leaders. The world today needs people who are capable of listening to all sides before speaking, can hold paradoxes without rushing to resolve them, know how to pause instead of reacting impulsively, live their values even when they're not trending, unite people without erasing differences, are willing to lose popularity to preserve integrity. These leaders are already among us. They are not always on the front pages. They often walk silently, but leave deep footprints. They are builders of bridges in a world full of walls, and their power lies not in domination, but in embodiment. They don't demand applause. They act even when no one sees. They are the ones who, when everyone chooses a side, ask, what if we chose to meet in the center? And that is true leadership. Chapter 7, A Call to Action. You've read the reflections. You've walked through history, spirituality, and silence. But none of this will matter if it stays on these pages. The time has come to act, but this action may not be what you think. It's not about shouting louder or converting people to your side. It's not about writing angry posts or creating more us versus them. It's about embodying the center, not as a theory, but as a lifestyle. It's about waking up each day and choosing to be a bridge, not a barricade. It's about listening even when it's hard, about disagreeing without disqualifying, about planting seeds even if we won't see the tree grow. The revolution begins in the subtle, when we interrupt a cruel joke, when we choose not to laugh at what excludes, when we open space for someone who thinks differently, when we choose the complexity of reality over the simplicity of slogans. The center is built like this, act by act, gaze by gaze. And this is not naivety, it's courage. Because in a polarized world, being balanced is an act of rebellion. Loving those who hurt us is revolutionary. Seeking dialogue where there is shouting is prophetic. Being silent when the ego wants to respond is strength. Creating community when everything pushes for individualism is salvation. You are not alone. There are thousands, millions of people who also feel that something is not right, that this war of opinions is consuming the soul of humanity, and who silently are rebuilding the world from within. This book does not end here. It begins now, in you, in your choices, in your words, in your courage to say basta to the noise, and yes to the sacred center that heals. The world is watching. The next generations will ask, what did you do when everything was falling apart? Let your answer be clear. I built bridges. André Bianchi, Monte-Raso, 2025.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content.
Remember these words of wisdom, and may your path be illuminated. Follow for more guidance.
Be the change you want to see in the world today.